We are going to try something a little different this morning. I do a lot of different things. I get asked to do all kinds of things, and in the spirit of trying to multitask, one of the things I do is a 30-minute radio show in the Tampa, St. Petersburg area. And I thought I'd try and record the show on the video this morning. So if you want to hang with me for about 30 minutes or not, just a little part of it, you're welcome to do so. But I just thought, why not? A lot of people do record longer videos, and I do this every single week, and it just comes off the top of my head, so we're going to start recording. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jaffe Jones. I am the veg coach and the broccoli rep, because who else is? And you are listening to Journey to Health and Learning, graciously and generously sponsored by the Silverback Peace Group. And before I get into this morning's show, I did just want to mention that I will actually be doing a talk on a couple of my books combined into one talk called Vegan Paleo is the first topic, and then the second one is going to be the title of my first book, Eat Vegan on $4 a Day. So I'm going to show you how to eat like a paleo person very cheaply. And I actually did a webinar this week with a guy named Steve Prusak, and you can Google him. And he has a huge following, like 100,000 people who subscribe to just his email list, his distribution list. And we had 1,000 people sign up for the call, which was incredible. And suffice it to say that it was really controversial, because like some of the early reviews on my book, Paleo Vegan, that one right here, people actually said, how can you talk about those two words in the same sentence, let alone write a book about them? And it was just, as Steve said, the most controversial webinar he's ever done. But you can actually listen to the replay if you go to his website. Just Google Steve Prusak and you'll find out how to get to him. But anyway, I'm going to be talking about that, and I really think it is important to address the paleo fad that's out there. It's huge right now. I just found out that a relative very near and dear to me is going to work at a whey protein bar company, and it just really made me so sad. I mean, when I was young, whey protein bars were still the rage, and they had been for a while, and I get it. But in the Paleolithic diet, as defined by meat eaters, and that's really important to understand that all the meat eaters got to their publishers first, they just came up with this idea that Paleolithic people, like 1 million, 2 million years ago, were eating or drinking the fluid from another species, which they weren't. And so the whey, protein whey, is an extract of cow's milk, has made its way into protein bars forever, and as a way to, in theory, build muscle. Now, I don't do whey protein bars, and I have plenty of muscle and plenty of muscle definition, and I always ask people, how many people do you know have been diagnosed with a protein deficiency? Usually the answer is 0. And then I ask how many people have been diagnosed with diabetes, heart disease, or cancer. And of course, that is where we really need to be focusing our energy. But anyway, I will be speaking about all of those topics at the South Shore Library, Saturday, January 24th, in Ruskin, and the address there is 15816 Beth Shields Way. So you do have to register for this. It's at the library in Ruskin, where I will be speaking at noon, and there will be some refreshments, and my history with the Silverback Peace Group is they always come up with great refreshments. It won't be lunch. It won't be me doing my usual cooking thing, which I do a lot of, but I will be just speaking there, and you're welcome to come to that and see what it is, what it's like to be a vegan, to taste vegan food, to see and feel. Well, no, you can't feel the real vegan, but I am the sexiest vegan over 50, according to People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I actually won that contest. So kind of funny to see all of this play out because I was the last person in the world to enter such a contest. But poor PETA, they don't get money. They don't get the underwriting that the meat and dairy industries do. And I can't even begin to tell you how familiar I am with those kinds of issues, but that's why I entered the contest, just to give them a little more free PR, which they desperately need. All right, so you do have to register with the Silverback Peace Group if you want to come hear me at the Ruskin Library, the Southside Library. And you can find a way to register either on their website, which is the Silverback Peace Group. You can just Google them and come up with that, or you can just email them directly at the silverbackpeacegroup@gmail.com. So a great group. They are underwriting this radio show, and the reason they do that is because they want to get the word out that eating vegan is the best thing you can do for your health, the planet, and of course the animals. And what is vegan, if you don't know? It is not eating anything or using anything, hopefully, in theory, that has a mother or a face. And so many of us are finding that, and I hear this all the time now when I speak and I run, that the last 5K I did, and by the way, there's 80 5K races that I have placed in since 2006, just on plants. So I just keep hearing from people who come up to me at a race and go, I keep hearing that my friends are going vegan just because it's so good for your health. And it really is true. It's the best kept secret in America. If you've been following me, you know that my non-vegan husband had a heart attack on Halloween, and so many of the cardiologists and doctors that we ran into admitted, they just downright came right out and said, we didn't get any nutrition classes in medical school. You know way more about what to cook your husband than we could ever tell you. So that is something that you need to really consider and ask your doctor, how many nutrition classes did you take in medical school exactly? Usually the answer will be 0. So what's coming up? Let's see. I am also doing monthly, for the next 2 months rather. I'm doing so many cooking classes it's hard to keep track of them all, but this is peak season here in Southwest Florida. So I am doing as many live cooking classes as I possibly can. I'm doing 7 more at my house here on Anna Maria Island. I do them for free, and I get the food donated, so I just really enjoy sharing the love that I have for a vegan diet, and really it's payback to all the doctors who helped me out when I first started this journey when my mom, aunt, and eventually both sisters got breast cancer. I was 28 years old. I almost died of a colon blockage that year. And so I really found that eating, just ramping up the fiber in my diet, because they said I was going to need to be on medicine the rest of my life. Oh, so not true. And, just eating a vegan diet was really the way to cure all my ills. And it is just amazing how many people find that this does work. So I'm doing cooking classes out of my house every Wednesday through February. So that's the classes start at 11:30. So you got to take your lunch hour. I'm telling you, just come on down, and you can find out about the classes through the Bradenton Vegetarian and Vegan Meetup group. To RSVP, you got to join the group, but I will prepare you a nice lunch for the next 7 weeks starting next Wednesday. So be sure and check that out. The other place I'm doing free cooking classes, you'll have to go to the Rollin' Oats Health Food Store calendar. They have an events calendar, and they have generously asked me to come do cooking classes twice a month, once at the St. Petersburg store and then once at the Tampa store. That's Rollin' Oats. Go to their website, rollinoats.com. and you will find all the cooking classes that I am doing. And they only put the calendar up about a month or 2 in advance, so it won't take it out farther than that, but I have been teaching there for the better part of the last year, and it really is a lot of fun. Again, they supply the food, and all their food that we use is organic, and so that's just really, really cool. All right, so I guess we can't really get through this radio broadcast without talking about the terrorist shootings in France of the cartoonists. And as a former television reporter for 18 years, I have just been so struck by how we think that freedom of the press is just this sort of natural, God-given, earth-given right that is no problem. And I've tracked, on Twitter and Facebook and watched all the posts and everything, and probably one of the most striking quotes or thoughts about this is that we just think that we have this ability to criticize and as a journalist myself, I mean, I always got death threats, but one of the best quotes I saw was, journalists always get death threats, but we don't think anybody's going to act on them. And, I was a TV investigative reporter in St. Louis and Miami, and some people went to jail as a result of the stories I did. And they and their followers just weren't happy about that. And the FBI was involved in a couple of the threats, especially back in those days. Some of them would actually send the threats in the mail. So, that then becomes a federal crime when you start threatening somebody's life that way. But, I had this kind of cavalier attitude that nobody's really going to do anything, because if they do, it's all going to be recorded on camera, or somebody's going to know who did it. Especially if I did a bad story about somebody, we're going to know who the source was. And that didn't mean that I did live in fear. Sometimes I would come back to my apartment at night and knock on the neighbor's door and go would you come in with me? And just see that there's nobody hiding behind the door. I mean, those are the kinds of things that, I think it was pretty justified paranoia based on some of the stories I did at the time. So it's kind of hard to get your arms wrapped around this idea that there are people in the world who would just take you out for something, as Jon Stewart said on The Daily Show a couple of nights ago, for just drawing a cartoon. But as an activist, I guess people started calling me that at some point along the way, and you do have to kind of think. I mean, the worst thing that's really happened to me is somebody keyed my car from front to back. And, that's not fun. But, you just kind of do these things because it's the right thing to do. And it just wouldn't occur to me to keep my mouth shut. And you have to be the voice for the voiceless, whether it's animals or whether it is somebody whose health is failing and they're getting a lot of misinformation from questionable sources. So trying to get that information out there. I can't tell you how many people I've heard from who've said that your books, your talks changed my life, and I've been able to do all these things that I never would have dreamed that I could have done. And that's what a vegan diet can do for you. And, I really believe that if more people connected with their food, it's kind of easy for me to say this in my Western civilization relative to the rest of the world, living pretty well, even though we really do scrimp a lot and eat on $4 a day, or at least I do. But I really think if more people were thinking about how to be more compassionate toward animals, and that means not killing them to get on their plate 3 times a day. I mean, there's studies that show that people who abuse animals tend to abuse people, and I think that if we had more compassion in how we got food on our plate, that maybe some of these wires that are connected in our head that make people go out and blow up buildings or just destroy and murder and maim random people they don't know, if they had more of these compassionate feelings, maybe they might think twice. Now, I know that the terrorists in France were described as being orphans, and a lot of bad stuff can happen. I get that. But I just think as a global community, we have got to do something to try and make the world a better place and reach out to connecting these dots for so many people. And I really, I've often said in my cooking classes, I hope you like the recipes, because we're all going to be vegan in 30 years, whether we want to or not, based on environmental conditions, the price of meat and dairy, which is greatly affected by drought conditions, which aren't getting any better, and of course the available water and land to raise cattle for slaughter. It just, it's not, especially in a growing world population. The Stockholm Water Institute, that's one of my favorite studies that I'm fond of quoting, talks about how there's just not going to be enough water and land to support the meat that is needed and the protein consumption based on animal products by 2030. And that study, that's actually where I get the idea of saying we're all going to be vegan by 2030 or not. The Stockholm Water Institute, their study says, and stories have been written about the interpretation of their results, saying that we will be vegetarian by 2030. But, I believe that unless we get the antibiotic issue out of control, which is out of control, get that issue reined in, then we are going to have some tough times going forward. This whole thing that cows are routinely given antibiotics because they are they often are given hormones to increase their milk production, and as any breastfeeding mother will tell you, and I was a Leche League leader, breastfeeding information support group, so I know all this firsthand. If you don't get milked enough, then you get engorgement, which causes mastitis, and that's the reason these antibiotics are given to dairy cows in particular, to make sure that they don't get infections. Because what happens when they get an infection? Then their milk is filled with, I'm sorry, but this is really true, their milk gets filled with pus. And who wants to drink pussy milk? And there have actually been studies that show that dairy milk is filled with this anyway, no matter how many antibiotics they're getting, because the cows are probably getting resistant to antibiotics as well. So there are lots of reasons not to drink dairy. That's just one of them. We could do a whole program on that, but there are lots of books and many doctors who have written why we shouldn't be drinking milk from another species. So go check that out. Don't take my word for any of this. I base all my information on the research of a number of vegan doctors who are out there. Dr. John McDougall, Dr. Neil Barnard's done a lot of research, Joel Furman, another great vegan doctor. All of these doctors who are out there promoting a vegan way of life. Sure, I'm guessing they would love to save the animals, but they have seen in their own practices how traditional Western medicine just really doesn't cut it. And so that's one of the reasons that you should explore this and go on this journey all by yourself, in addition to all of the information you may be getting from various sources. So just understand there's no money in broccoli. There's no corporation that makes it. There's no broccoli lobby or broccoli association. And you have to, when you understand that concept, then you have to be your own investigative reporter like I was, and just figure out the truth about food. And, as a reporter, and I do still consider myself a reporter first, and a journalist, and I still like to think that I am open to information or research from the other side, but I just haven't seen it. And what's interesting about the paleo concept is that, written by and defined first by the meat eaters, is that no doctor I know of has written a paleo book. But there are plenty of doctors who have written vegan books of various sources, and you really just need to consider the source. That's very important. So I base my opinions and feelings and my life's work on not only what I'm getting from these doctors, but what has worked so well in my own life. And I just don't think I could do all the running that I do without being on a healthy, well-balanced, plant-based diet. So I hope you'll come to some of my cooking classes and the talks that I give around the area. I really just try and be as available as I can. Speaking of which, Tallahassee is having its own Veg Fest. I just got invited to that. Not sure if I'll go. You know, a lot of times these startup Veg Fests, they're really scrounging and trying to scrap together some money to pay some of the speakers. And it's not that I charge much for speaking, but I really just like, especially a distance like that, I at least like to get my gas mileage reimbursed. And part of that is in my whole thing, I just try not to lose money doing this. I know a number of authors, vegan or not, who have lost a ton of money believing that they have the next great American novel or cookbook, and before you know it, any advance money, if they were lucky to get any, which really doesn't happen anymore for the most part, you know, it's all gone. And I actually know one friend who is an author who she got a large advance because of her connections, and she wrote a book with several other women, and you know, they totally blew the money on traveling to be on certain talk shows, and then of course that really just didn't, you know, beyond that didn't kick in and promote book sales the way they thought it was. So it's challenging to be an author these days, that's for sure. And for many of us, we do it for love and not money. And my publisher is fond of saying, don't quit your day job. And he even says there's a book by that title. I haven't checked it out. And my day job is a certified personal trainer as well as a certified running coach. And I just try and help people achieve their goals, whatever it is, trying to find out what that goal is. And it's been a fun journey. And you know, for some people, the goals are just minimal, just walking 10, 20, 30 minutes a day. For some people who have issues, some of my clients, it's just like getting off the floor if they fall kind of thing. And those are very real concerns, and it's easy to get into this downward spiral if you don't take care of yourself. And that's why I do all the running. And even the racing, it's sort of forced fitness. I know I've got a 5K tomorrow here on Anna Maria Island, and I'm really looking forward to it because I've done it every year, and it's just a great course around the island. But you know, I just know tomorrow that I gotta get up and go do it. And that's really just getting into the habit of doing something. We talk about New Year's resolutions this time of year, and I have been looking at some recent studies about this, and it's about changing our habits. So, for example, if you want to run or walk, one of the best ways to do that is the night before you get your clothes out and your shoes ready to go at the door, and you just fall into this habit, this routine of trying to be fit. And the studies show that once you stick to this kind of a routine, that's how you become a walker or a runner. So I hope that is a little bit of inspiration for your New Year's resolutions. They figure that people by the end of January have pretty much broken all those resolutions, but that's not really entirely true. We do have this natural tendency as humans to kind of reevaluate and figure out how we want to do things differently. And there are a lot of websites, by the way, promoting going vegan for January, sort of a meatless January, a kind of a takeoff on the meatless Mondays that are out there. And if you've started your January and you haven't gone vegan yet, well, consider meatless Mondays. You can research, Google them, and find out lots of recipes and ideas and support in how to do that. So, you know, I think one of the things that we did in the webinar that I mentioned earlier that I just found to be so fascinating is that we had like 1,000 people sign up for the webinar versus maybe 15 or 20 people who come to my live cooking classes. So I am considering, the technology is really there now. I have the food donated for my cooking classes, joyously donated, by the way. And you know, people really, it seems to me, you know, companies, food corporations, grocery stores, like the idea that there are people out there like me who can promote, when I do the cooking classes, the food and show how tasty and wonderful and organic, in most cases, it is. So I'm thinking about doing cooking classes in a webinar format, and I'd like in the comments that you can either email me or post on my YouTube channel, Ellen Jaffe Jones on YouTube. You can let me know if you'd be interested in attending a class, a cooking class. Now, the bad news is, of course, I can't serve the food to you, and I feel really badly about that, and I wish we had smell-o-vision. But, you know, I see in my part of Southwest Florida people charging like $80 or $100 for a single cooking class at some of these fancy restaurants where, you know, they serve you wine and all this high fat and, in my opinion, unhealthy food. So tell me if you would attend such a cooking class, and let me know how much you think it's worth. How much would you be willing to pay to attend an online cooking class with me? So you can let me know from my website, vegcoach.com, which I just got redone, by the way, because my old web guru website designer just went AWOL, just decided he wasn't doing it one day, and we won't even go there. But I have a new website now that is wonderful and fully functional, and I'm really excited about that. So you can contact me through vegcoach.com. You can also find my blog and my newsletter and my books on my website. A lot of free stuff. I have just done so much free stuff over the years. And, you know, some people are now saying, Ellen, you know, what you do is really valuable, so start charging for it. I don't know. I mean, I have mixed feelings about that. As a consumer reporter, former consumer reporter, I do feel somewhat guilty about charging for anything I do because I don't want to come on as this high-pressure saleswoman or anything like that. And yet, I do believe that there is some value in what I do, and I see other people who aren't a certified personal trainer or a certified running coach or have any experience really in this whole vegan lifestyle coaching that I do and have done for free for decades. And so, you know, maybe it's time to step up to the plate and say, okay, you ought to be, I mean, I tell my kids, I've told my kids all their lives, do what you love and the money will come. Do your passion. And this totally is my passion. So figuring out a way that is, I guess, respectable to make money at it. You know, given the fact that my attempts to be the next healthy vegan Rachel Ray don't seem to be working because, unfortunately, in the network television world, or even in the more subdued, smaller networks of television, it's just the meat and dairy folks have pushed back and the advertisers have pushed back, so I haven't been able to get a show, an actual cooking show. And you know, I still, every time I watch Anthony Bourdain, I think, oh my goodness, do we really need to see fried junk again? Or animal parts being dipped in some kind of high-fat sauce. I mean, just don't get me started on all that. I just think, you know, fine, if people want to watch that, great, but don't people deserve to have a cooking show with a fun-loving vegan chef out there? I am just saying. It doesn't even have to be me. I am just saying. So the attempts that have happened over time for other people who are much younger and prettier and whatever, you know, there aren't a lot of shows that have made it to prime time. So, all right, well, that was, if you heard a beep, that was my activity monitor telling me I should move, even though I think I am moving. I'm standing as I do this broadcast. So I just wanted to close with a reminder that, again, if you'd like to hear me speak on January 24th at the Southside Library, South Shore Library in Ruskin, please do feel free to contact the Silverback Peace Group at gmail.com to register. You got to register. They actually have a fair number of people already registered, so I don't know how they're going to do that. Maybe they'll set up a TV monitor and broadcast it outside. But a big thanks to the Silverback Peace Group for sponsoring this show, The Journey to Health and Living, Health and Learning. And but it's also about living too, right? And I like to close with just popping out a recipe from one of my books. And what I like on these cold days is something that's easy and warm and satisfying. So I like my Portobello Poor Boy sandwich out of Eat Vegan on $4 a day. By the way, all of my 3 recipe books have about 100 different recipes, and what I do in Eat Vegan is I actually price out each recipe. That's what makes it so unique. So every recipe has an estimated price based on ingredients you could find at any big box store. So the portabella sandwich is, and I am just pausing a moment here to adjust something on the recorder. 2 large portobello mushrooms, stemmed, 1/4 cup balsamic vinegar, 4 tablespoons water, 2 roasted red peppers drained, 2 ounces of spinach leaves, 1 small loaf whole wheat French bread, split lengthwise and halved, and then 1 tablespoon of low sodium salt. You put the mushrooms and vinegar in a medium bowl, marinate for 20 minutes, put the marinated mushrooms and 2 tablespoons of the water in a medium skillet, cook over medium heat for 10 minutes or until just softened and tender. As the mushrooms cook, add more water if necessary to prevent sticking, loosening them with a spatula. You can tell I'm speaking fast. Top each mushroom with a roasted red pepper, cover the skillet, decrease the heat to low, and cook for 3 to 5 minutes until the peppers are warmed. Divide the spinach leaves and put them on 2 bottom pieces of the French bread. Cut the mushrooms and peppers in half and divide between the sandwiches. Sprinkle with soy sauce if desired, and top with the remaining pieces of bread. Okay, so that is your portabella poor boy sandwich. Say that 10 times fast. Okay, everybody, I'm over my time limit, so I gotta run. Have a great day. I'm Ellen Jaffe Jones. Find me at vegcoach.com, and thanks, Silverback Peace Group, for having me on.